Kal Kadosh, just wanted to speak to you about a very important topic. So people are going to say, what's going on right now? What are we living through? We are all believers, and even though at the time right now we don't understand what truly is occurring, we are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we truly think and we know that Bezrat Hashem, there's obviously something good to it. For example, we took the story that we just finished with, Purim. If everyone would take the individual plot or the individual cases that happened, think about now Vashti is being killed. Why is she being killed? It doesn't make sense. All of a sudden, they're taking a Jewish queen. At the beginning, nobody understood why. It doesn't make sense. Taking a Jewish girl in order to be taken by Achashverosh. Then all of a sudden Haman becomes greater, and then she invites him to the party. Everything that's going on, if you look at it in the individual cases, it all looks terrible. However, though, only after we put all the puzzle together, when we see everything that happens through the Megillah, we already know the outcome. Now it's actually a beautiful story. But at the beginning, we are truly afraid, and we don't understand what's happening. But we have this emunah that we know that for sure is actually something going to be great. And therefore, that's what we have to actually understand that's going on in our difficult times as well. With this virus, and we come and we start thinking to ourselves, look at the economy, look at the health, look at everything that's going on, the chaos, children, they're not in school, nobody's able to really cope or function properly. But there is going to be a time when we will understand and we will see that this is actually for our best. Listen to this Gaon of Vilna. The Gaon of Vilna comes and he says on the pasuk, Hodula Hashem kiru bishmo, hodiu ba'amim alilotav. We are thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, calling out His name, and we're telling the nations His actions. Says the Gaon, what does that mean exactly? He says we are going to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu and reveal to the nations actions. Which actions? The alilot of the chesed hagadol, the great chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with Am Yisrael, that many times He'll give a Jew some type of a good fortune, something good in his life, and then He takes it away. And He says, why? In order for kaparat avonot. Which means sometimes people come and they start complaining. 1 second we had huge birachot, we had wealth, we had health, we had this and we had that. And now all of a sudden HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and He takes it away. And people start complaining. Why is Hashem taking it away? And they didn't realize that Hashem only gave it to him to take it away. Which means that was the biggest chesed that he could have done, to give it to him in order to take it away. And this is such an important yesod that we have to actually thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We actually saw this in last week's parasha as well. The Hatam Sofer says on the pasuk, "V'ra'ita et achorai ufanai lo yirau." What does that mean? You're going to see from behind, but ufanai, but in my face, you're not going to see it. Says the Hatam Sofer, many times in life, when you're looking at something, we do not understand it. He says, "V'ra'ita et achorai." Afterwards, you will see what's going on. Ufanai, but when it's in face to face in front of you, lo yirau, you won't see it. This actually happened to him in itself. It's brought down that what happened is that when he went to yeshiva, it's brought down in the Sefer that he's speaking about himself. And he says as follows. The Chutam Shulash brings down, when he was a Bachur, he went to the city of Minsk. And there, when he was going, the minhag was they used to go to a rich person's house and they used to stay there, they used to eat there, they used to sleep there, and then they used to learn in the yeshiva. But there were also French, we're going to call them French army, French soldiers. They used to come and also stay in the house. So there was one person that became very, very close to the Hatam Sofer, and he asked for the Hatam Sofer when he was a little child. Please teach me certain things, and I'll wash your clothing, I'll take care of it. And they grew a very big bond. What happened was many, many years later, the Hatam Sofer, he became the rabbi of Preshvug. And Preshvug, there was a fight between Austria, right, and France, and Preshvug was caught in the middle. So they went and they started saying false accusations that the Hatam Sofer was a spy. So they took him in front, right, of Preshvug. They took him there in order to judge him. The second that he got there, all of a sudden, the main judge that's sitting there calls him out. So the Hatam Sofer is trembling. He's saying, what's going to happen here? He's a rabbi, they're coming, they're going to probably finish him off. So he comes and the judge tells him, you don't recognize me? He looks at him, he's trying to remember, and he says, the second that they come and they realize what they were for each other, they hug each other, they're all happy. And he comes and he tells the Hatam Sofer, don't worry about anything. He says, I know who you are, and I know that they're just giving false accusations. So you don't have to worry. Says the Hatam Sofer, it could have taken me years and years. That you would think to yourself, why was it so important for me to come, to recognize it, to learn with this boy? This is a chayal, this is a soldier, to make some connection, some bond with him. But I only knew many, many years later that it was actually only for my good, and it was purposely done. This is actually something incredible. We know that this is actually happening right now. When this corona started here in Surfside in Bal Harbor, how did it start? First, Yan Gizor closed down Erev Shabbat. Then the Shul of Bal Harbor was only on Motzei Shabbat. But on Shabbat itself, they didn't accept anybody from New York. It was incredible. There was a Hasid that came from New York, and they were told you had to pray outside of the synagogue. Okay, we understand it. They didn't want it to come inside. And when the news came out that in the Shul of Bal Harbor there was already this virus, so all of a sudden the Hasid went and he told me, I'm glad, Baruch Hashem, they didn't let me inside, because I ran away from New York in order to be safe, and I would have gotten into the problem. So you see that at the time, we would have thought to ourselves, 1 second, it's not actually good. But then really we realized that it was actually for our best. This story of this Hasid that just happened this Sunday morning when he told me this, what does it remind us of? A famous story of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara Masechet Berachot Daf Samech Amud Bet says, Rabbi Akiva once had to go to a certain city. It was getting late, so he had to stay there the night. He's, of course, imagine big Rabbi Rabbi Akiva knocking on the door. One door, they close the door on him. Second door, nobody invites him in. Imagine what type of a feeling somebody would feel getting into such a city, nobody inviting him in. So he says, okay, he has to go out of the city. He's going to go on the side streets. He's going to go on the side and he's going to start going to sleep over there. All he had with him was a candle. He had his donkey, he had his rooster. Okay. So we know the story, the famous story. All of a sudden he's learning Torah and a wind comes and blows out the candle. So he says, okay, whatever Kosh Baruch Hu does, it's for the best. No problem. Let's continue. All of a sudden, he comes and he hears a cat, comes and eats a rooster. Okay, again, everything that Hashem does is for the best. He continues. All of a sudden, here's a lion. And this is all happening in his vicinity. That the lion comes and eats his donkey. Again, the lion comes and he walks away again. But the story didn't finish there. So finally he comes, he hears screaming coming from the city. He awakens, he looks, and he sees that they're taking it out in captivity. He comes back to his students and he tells them, you always thought, and I always was teaching you, some theory that I had in my mind. The theory I had in my mind was, everything that Hashem does was for the best. It's not anymore just a thesis. It's not anymore a theory. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw how step by step, every single one of them was vital and was important, because if there would have been missing even one little tiny piece, I myself would have been caught. I myself would have been there, whether it was a candle, whether it was a rooster making noise, a donkey making the noise, any of them. And therefore Hashem needed every single step on the way. He needed to do that to take it away from me in order to save me. So if I would have looked at it as something negative, it wouldn't have been good. And that's why Rav Elia Lokian comes and he brings a beautiful mashal. He says in the Shira Shiri, Mashkiach min hachalonot, metzitz min hacharakim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes is mashkiach min hachalonot. He's looking at us through the window. And sometimes he's metzitz min hacharakim. Sometimes he's looking through the cracks and crevices of the door, through the little door handles of the door pins where they're looking, where they put the keys. What's the difference? The difference is not in HaKadosh Baruch Hu looking. Because it doesn't matter whether you're looking through a window or you're looking through a little crack in the door. If I could see you properly, I see you. The difference is the one that's being watched. Because if right now I look through the window, I see somebody's watching me. But if I look in little tiny cracks, it's very difficult to see somebody that's watching me, because I can't see him clearly there. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always watching. Sometimes we see him through the window, but sometimes we don't. And what Rabbi Akiva was trying to teach his students is that we always have Avinu Shabbat Shamayim. We always have our Father in heaven. And sometimes, just like a father comes, and sometimes he'll hold his child's hand. Sometimes he'll come and he'll put his child on his shoulders. But sometimes he's going to let the child just go on his own in order that she grow on his own. And sometimes he'll even punish the child. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always the Father. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there, and he's always going to do the best for us. He's Avinu Malkenu. And therefore he's our Father, he's our King. He wants the best for us. And therefore we always have to realize that, even in the toughest of times, like now, that we could say to ourselves, look what's going on. All the infrastructure, whether it's talking about stock markets, whether it's talking about the finances, whether it's talking about jobs, whether it's talking about the economy, whether it's talking about anything that we have. Travel, you can't even travel. You have to cancel travel plans, Pesach at home, children at home, no schools, no order, no nothing, no food. You go to the places, you would think to yourself, what's going on? But only if we actually realize little by little, step by step, that every single one of these things was inevitable, it was needed, it was required for us to grow, for us to see it. You're right now maybe we don't see it. Right? Right now we're fanai, we're panim panim, we're looking at it face to face. Maybe we can't see it. If we truly look down, maybe we will see beautiful ideas, and we'll speak about that in the future. But right now you think about it, what good could come out of this? But then you say, no. You come and you see it later on, you will see it. I'll finish with an incredible story brought down by Rav Zilberstein in the Sefer Aleinu L'Shabeach. Listen to this story, because I think it's something incredible. That if we actually just take the lesson, it's something which is mind-boggling. It says many times we go through life, at the beginning we don't understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does certain things. But then at the end, many times, much later, we realize how good that it was. He says there was a story with somebody, a Jew, that was called Yitzchak Slotsky. This Yitzchak Slotsky, during the Holocaust, what happened is he came from a very important family in Poland, and his family was one of the first to be wiped out. The only survivors of his family was himself, and he was a 16-year-old boy at the time, and his sister. What happened is that he made upon himself, he took upon himself that he was going to protect his sister no matter what. So what happened is that they went in a certain village. They were obviously in hiding from the Nazis, and they were hiding in a small little tiny bunker, in a small little tiny place underground. And they were there, and he made sure that his sister would never leave. And he would always come out, get whether it's for food, clothing, and he would always bring it back to her, and he made sure that she never left. And this is how they were going for months and months and months. And even though the Goyim that were in the surrounding area knew that they were Jews, they never gave their hiding place. It once happened that one day, coming home from buying his kniot, many times people have a certain intuition. He sees the bunker from far and he says something's wrong. He comes closer, he runs in and he realizes that his sister's not there. He says many, many years later, he says he doesn't understand what gave him the strength or what even went into his mind that he went crazy. He went running to the street and started asking people, did you see where this girl went? Did you see what happened? They went and they said, yes, she's in that building, the building in the city center, which was the center of where the Nazis had. This was where their center was. He went running and he ran into the building. He passed the guards. He ran into the building screaming, give me back my sister. Give me back my sister. Where is she? You took her from me. The people there, obviously, they're not used to this abuse from this 16-year-old boy. They pulled out their guns to shoot. But now, right before they were going to shoot, the person, the head of the Nazis, he comes and he's listening to this whole commotion coming outside. He comes, he opens the door, he says, oh, what's wrong? He continues screaming, they took my sister, I want my sister. So he comes, come inside. He wants to play, he wants to have some fun. So he comes and he sits him down, he tells him, what do you want? He's telling him, I need my sister back. He said, well, you really think that we're going to get her back? Yeah, for sure. He says, you know what? No problem. On one condition. He says, okay. He says, if you open up your hand and you show me that you have hairs coming out of the palm of your hand, I'll give you back your sister. The 16-year-old boy, he didn't hesitate. He says, and you promise to me that if I'm going to have hair on my palm of my hand, you're going to give me back my sister? He said, of course. A deal is a deal. He says, fine. He goes like this and he shows him the palm of his hand. And there was tons of hair on the palm of his hand. The Nazi's face, he became white and red, because it's known that the Nazis, whenever they wanted to associate with the devil or the Satan, the first thing that they always associated was an image that had hair on his hand, on the palm of his hand. He was going to faint on the spot. He screamed, get him out of here and give it back his sister, get them out of here. And he was actually saved. Many, many years later, what happened was that he was telling the story. So people came, they asked him, and we see it, they see the palm of his hand. It's incredible. But now explain to us what exactly happened. And he said like this, when he was a 7-year-old boy, his father was in charge. He owned a big, huge bakery. Now as a 7-year-old, what do? They're always jumping around, going to one place, another place, there's ovens around. When he was 7 years old, he went and he stuck his hand into one of these ovens and he completely burnt his entire palm of his hand. They quickly rushed him to the hospital. The hospital was very primitive. It wasn't a very good hospital. So obviously they had to do a transplant. They were going to put another part of his skin on his hand in order to make sure that he would have skin. What happened is that they took the piece of skin from another part of his body and it had hair there. So what happened is that it started growing hair and a lot of hair on the palm of his hand. He was a 7-year-old boy. He said his mother never liked it. His mother used to look and she didn't like it, but fine. They thanked the Kosh Baruch Hu. He was alive. He still had his palm. He had his hand. But it was very unpleasant. And they never understood, but okay, they have to accept it. This is the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His mother, whenever they used to go on the street, they always used to put your hands in your pocket. Nobody wants to see your hands. He was always embarrassed, even when the children in his class or children around him, they would be crying. Right? He would be crying. He was afraid. What? Look, they're making fun of me. But then he said, but now I understood why HaKadosh Baruch Hu did that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did that at the age of 7, because he already knew that at the age of 16, I was going to save my sister. And in order for me to save my sister, I needed that hair. I needed to get it out of this Nazi. And therefore, even at the time, you could always ask the question, look how many years, from the age of 7 to the age of 16. Past almost 10 years. Until you think to yourself, listen, but why? Imagine him every single day waking up in the morning, looking at his hand with hairs coming out, unpleasant. Think to himself, why did Hashem do this to me? But now he could say, I could truly thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because I realized why he did this to me. He knew that I needed to save my sister. And this is what we actually needed. I think this is very, very important. We'll continue the shiur Bezrat Hashem. There's a lot more to it about always seeing the positive that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us, even though right now we don't understand what's going on. It's a time of chaos. We don't understand. When we think to ourselves, why is Hashem doing this? Why? It's so bad. It's so negative. Everything's... No. Every single part of this is part of a whole master plan. We just don't see the master plan. But everything was actually going to be for our best. Bezrat Hashem, we should be able to actually come and to materialize, to see Bezrat Hashem, V'ra'ita Tachorai, that we should be able to be Zochev very soon, to see why HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this, and why Be'emet it's actually the best thing that he was able to do for the Jewish nation, with the coming of Mashiach. Amen. Have a wonderful day.